Hi, and welcome back to the DPAF. And I wanted to talk in this podcast about the rise of the unelected. And when I say that, I don't refer to a few extra people showing up at an anti-lockdown protest. I'm talking about these global groups that present themselves as global governmental groups, even though they're not global governmental groups. These are just groups of people that impersonate government, but they're not government. I'm talking about the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, International Monetary Fund, United States Federal Reserve, World Bank, and to some extent the European Union. I know they have an elected parliament, but they do not have an elected leadership. All the other groups I mentioned are elected by no one, but pass themselves off as these sort of global governmental groups, even though they're just private corporations. And I remember back when I was living in Washington, D.C., and there was someone I knew of, didn't know well, who got into legal trouble for impersonating a congressman. He was on a night out, stopped by the police, and he claimed he was a congressman to try and get out of the whatever issue it was, drunk and disorderly, I think. And I was informed by sort of friends in social conversations that this crime of impersonating a congressman was against the law. It was frowned upon, and it was sort of punishable kind of in a serious way. I can't remember what happened to this guy. I don't know if he got fined or what it was, but it's taken seriously, basically. You're not allowed to impersonate a congressman in Washington, D.C. or any other part of the USA. And in Britain, I don't know what the punishment for impersonating a member of parliament would be. I'm not sure anyone would want to impersonate a member of parliament because of all the abuse you'd get for doing so, and people wouldn't want to lower themselves to being seen or thought of as a member of parliament. So I can't imagine that happens too frequently. But going back to the Washington example, if impersonating a congressman is against the law, why is impersonating an entire governmental body not against the law? And of course, this is what's going on at the World Economic Forum or the World Health Organization. These are just corporate people that have gotten together. They invite elected officials. I mean, Theresa May was constantly going over to the World Economic Forum back in her very brief stint as Prime Minister. She was ripping into the President's Club, you might remember, from there, saying, we needed to treat women better and all this kind of nonsense. And she loved World Economic Forum. Other world leaders love it as well. They're always showing up. And of course, that gives legitimacy to these groups. But of course, it's still wrong to say that any of these people are elected. I mean, no one at the World Health Organization is elected. This is just a group of people funded by the US government and Bill Gates, and to a lesser extent, the government of China, International Monetary Fund, total private corporation. And it's amazing how our government sort of kowtow to these people and say, wow, these are sort of great people. No one points out the delineation between the fact that they're British Parliament is elected by the people, and these global non-governmental groups are not elected by anyone, let alone us. They couldn't care less about the British people, and yet there's doctors in the National Health Service sort of following World Health Organization guidance, when of course, it's nothing to do with us. I mean, we couldn't care less what their guidance is. We can choose to obey it or follow it, or we can choose to not follow it, but we're certainly not legally obligated to follow it, simply on the proviso that the World Health Organization is just a group of people not only not elected by us, but not elected by anyone else either. So it's a shame that the media never point any of this out. But of course, the media are also funded by a lot of these groups. And it's become more and more apparent to me since the start of lockdown 1 that we're passing off these global groups as global government when they're no such thing. Next point I want to make Just going back briefly to this nonsense with the COP26 in Scotland, this this green energy or curtailing global warming nonsense that they had this past week. Jeff Bezos gave a speech about how he could see how thin the ozone layer was when he was flying up to space in his rocket. And it's amazing how, you or I, if we leave the engine running on the Range Rover for more than 5 minutes in a stationary position, we're accused of damaging the environment. But Jeff Bezos can fly to space on a private rocket, and he can be lauded at the global warming conference. So total blatant double standards, as always. It's one rule for the moneyed interests who sponsor these environmental shindigs, and it's one rule for everyone else, of course. There's a story in the news last couple of days about this Tory MP Owen Patterson, similar last name to me, although mine is spelled INSON, and this crook has been taking money to lobby on behalf of private clients as a sitting MP. It's total blatant pay for play, and he should be facing criminal prosecution. The Conservative government, of course, and the Conservative Party have voted to change the law, or change the rules at least, to prevent any censure of him, and of course by extension any censure of them, because this is no doubt an unisolated incident, or not an isolated incident. This is widespread. This has been going on for a very long time. We saw it with Tony Blair, who made decisions in office so he could profit from those decisions out of office, and this has been heavily followed by Theresa May, who's absolutely addicted to foreign aid because she profits from that, and then David Cameron with Greensill Crony Capital. I acknowledge that the former Prime Ministers are out of office, and this Owen Patterson is in office. But it's the same scam. It's pay for play. It's going on all the time. We should have very strict ethics laws to prevent this from happening, but we're not going to have that under the current Conservative government. I've seen a story in the news about David Davis, who said during lockdown 1 that the cost of lockdown was no problem and we could just dump it on the people of 2050 without asking the people of 2050. And he did some sort of op-ed in the news complaining about online censorship or big tech censorship of him. He doesn't matter when it's big tech censorship of me or you or us, but he does care about it when it's about him. I guess he feels that as a member of parliament, if he still is a member of parliament, I'm not sure if he is, but he definitely was at one point, that he should be immune from censorship, but obviously he's been caught up in the net. And Steve Baker also did an op-ed yesterday in the news complaining about how ministers have too much power. They circumvent Parliament. There's not enough time for debate. And with a stroke of a pen, they can just make mandates or dictatorial laws that affect the people without the scrutiny of Parliament. And of course, it's Steve Baker that gave these ministers that exact privilege through the 1984 Health Act that he voted on in March 2020 when he did the crocodile tears. And I've mentioned this a lot. I also did a podcast a few days ago talking about how the members of the government are going to be denying their role in the lockdown. They're going to become lockdown deniers. And I actually mentioned Steve Baker, and he has actually come out and written this op-ed subsequent to that podcast. I don't know if you heard it or not, but he is trying to deny his role in giving the members of the cabinet these dictatorial powers. And yet he's the one that actually did that. So total hypocrisy, total fraud, wouldn't expect anything less. And, that's kind of the situation, I suppose. So I want people to look out for the rise of the unelected, because it's going to continue, not diminish. The British elected officials totally pander to the unelected international corporations, and they're certainly not going to be prosecuting any of these groups for impersonating elected officials or even impersonating governments, which is exactly what they're doing. So sad state of affairs. I encourage people to escape the system. I've moved over here to the country of Georgia. You're welcome to check out my website, lifeboatnow.com. It'd be great to have more British people coming over here. There's already a handful that I've met and that I've introduced to the city of Tbilisi, and very, very low cost of living, very, very low cost of property, minimal to no tax, and interest rates here I think are about 10%, so it's a benefit for savers. Interest rates in Britain are zero, and it's just going to lead to more and more inflation, increases in the cost of living, and it's going to get more bleak as our debt continues to increase, which it will do under a conservative government that is not remotely conservative. So thanks a lot for listening. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll talk to you soon.